You're tuned in to the Robert Judat podcast, where curiosity meets human peer review. Though the voice is artificial, the knowledge is authentic. Let's begin.
The US Department of Homeland Security just handed Palantir a billion-dollar contract, while enterprises are simultaneously questioning whether monolithic platforms are the future. Today, we're diving into the great enterprise data platform divide. Specifically, how Palantir's ontology-first approach compares to modern cloud analytics ecosystems, what the architectural differences actually mean for your organization, and the strategic trade-offs that are reshaping how companies think about data infrastructure. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why this isn't just a technology choice, but a fundamental decision about how your organization operates.
So let's start with what makes this comparison so fascinating. According to the search results, Palantir Foundry treats semantics as infrastructure. It's modeling operational domains, entities, relationships, and logic as the foundation of everything else. Meanwhile, cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud are building infrastructure first and letting you figure out the semantics later.
Wait, can you break that down? What does semantics as infrastructure actually mean in practice?
Think about it this way. When you use Foundry, you're not just storing data about a customer order. You're modeling what an order actually is, how it relates to customers, products, inventory, shipping, all the real-world relationships. The platform understands that an order isn't just rows in a database, it's a business concept with meaning.
Versus cloud platforms where you'd build those relationships yourself?
Exactly. With AWS or Azure, you get incredible building blocks, data lakes, warehouses, ML services, but you're responsible for connecting the dots. You build the semantic layer on top of the infrastructure.
And according to what I found, this creates some pretty stark differences in who actually uses these platforms. The research shows Databricks is adopted by data engineers and data scientists, while Palantir is adopted by operational leaders and executives.
That's the key insight right there. One LinkedIn analysis I saw put it perfectly. AWS is best for large-scale workloads and flexible services, Azure for enterprise and Microsoft ecosystem, Google Cloud for AI and ML, but Palantir Foundry for end-to-end data fusion, security, and AI-driven decision-making.
So we're really talking about different philosophies here, but let's get concrete. What does this look like in the real world?
Perfect example from the search results. There's a Swiss hospital network that connected clinical data warehouses, inventory management ERP, and patient monitoring IoT sensors all through Palantir. The platform automatically understands that a patient is connected to their medical records, their current location, and the equipment they're using.
That's pretty impressive. How would that same hospital approach this with traditional cloud platforms?
They'd probably use something like Azure Synapse or Google BigQuery for the data warehouse, build custom APIs to connect the systems, and then spend months or years building applications that understand those relationships. Much more engineering-heavy approach.
And that brings up cost, right? I'm seeing in the research that total cost of ownership is one of the main reasons enterprises are reassessing Palantir.
Yeah, the search results mention concerns around licensing, implementation, and ongoing platform engineering costs. Plus, there's this interesting point about proprietary semantics and long-term portability.
What do you mean by proprietary semantics?
When you build your business logic into Palantir's ontology system, you're essentially locked into their way of thinking about data. If you want to move to a different platform later, you can't just export your data, you have to rebuild all those relationships and business rules.
So it's like the difference between renting a fully furnished apartment versus buying your own furniture. One's easier up front, but harder to move.
That's actually a perfect analogy. And the research shows this is creating some interesting market dynamics. According to a 2026 study, more buyers are reassessing whether a single monolithic platform is the right long-term operating model.
But here's what's fascinating. I'm seeing that these platforms are starting to work together rather than just compete. There's this major partnership between Snowflake and Palantir.
Right. And that partnership is really telling. They announced bidirectional, zero-copy interoperability between Foundry and Snowflake iceberg tables. Basically, you can have your data in Snowflake, but still use Palantir's ontology and AI capabilities on top of it.
So companies don't have to choose anymore.
Exactly. Look at Eaton. They're using both platforms. Ross Shalmo, their chief data officer, said the native integration eliminates tedious data movement tasks and lets them focus on delivering outcomes from agentic configuration to digital twins on their shop floor.
That's a great example of how this is playing out in practice. But let's talk about the government side. That billion-dollar DHS contract is pretty significant.
Absolutely. The DHS deal covers agencies like Customs and Border Protection, ICE, FEMA, and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. They're using Palantir for investigative case management, threat identification, logistics coordination, and operational planning.
And government contracts currently account for roughly 55% of Palantir's revenue, according to the search results. That's a pretty different customer base than your typical cloud provider.
Right, and there's a reason for that. The research shows Palantir has industry-leading security credentials and is trusted by the U.S. Department of Defense and intelligence agencies. They're the only commercial platform with deep FedRAMP authorization for classified environments.
So if you're a defense contractor or government agency, Palantir might be your only real option for certain use cases?
Pretty much. And that extends to their Microsoft partnership too. They're deploying Foundry, Gotham, Apollo, and AIP in Microsoft's Azure Government and even in the Azure Government Secret and Top Secret clouds.
But for commercial enterprises, the choice is more open. What are the main alternatives people are considering?
The research lists 8 main alternatives: Databricks for Lakehouse and ML engineering, Snowflake for cloud data warehousing, Microsoft Fabric for end-to-end analytics, Informatica for data integration and governance, Denodo for data virtualization, DataIQ for collaborative data science, and C3 AI for pre-built enterprise AI applications.
That's quite a range. How do organizations actually make this choice?
It really comes down to a few key factors. According to the analysis, if you want to build AI, you go with something like Databricks. If you want to deploy AI into the workflows of people who make decisions every day, you go with Palantir.
So it's about whether you have a team of data engineers who want to build custom solutions, or you need something that works out of the box for business users.
Exactly. Databricks is code first, Python, SQL, Scala, notebooks. Palantir is low-code and no-code application building for non-technical users. Completely different approaches to the same problem.
And the pricing models reflect that too, right?
Yeah, Databricks scales from smaller teams upward on a consumption model. You pay for what you use. Palantir pricing is custom and opaque, typically requiring enterprise contracts that aren't publicly disclosed.
Which probably explains why some organizations are doing phased transitions where multiple platforms coexist during migration.
Right. The research mentions that depending on risk, scope, and existing investment, companies are taking a more gradual approach rather than ripping and replacing everything at once.
Let's talk about the technical architecture for a moment. What are the fundamental differences in how these platforms are built?
Great question. Databricks uses a lakehouse architecture with Delta Lake on open storage. Palantir uses an ontology-based semantic layer on top of integrated data. Those are fundamentally different approaches to organizing and accessing information.
And what about governance? That seems like a big differentiator.
Huge difference. Databricks has Unity Catalog, which is configurable by your team. You set up the governance rules. Palantir has governance by design, built into the ontology layer. It's not something you configure, it's just how the platform works.
So again, it's that build versus buy decision. Do you want control over how governance works, or do you want it handled for you?
Exactly. And that extends to the setup model, too. Databricks is self-service. Your team builds and owns it. Palantir historically required forward-deployed engineers, though that's changing as they scale.
I'm curious about the analytics capabilities. How do these platforms handle the actual analysis and visualization?
Palantir has some interesting built-in tools: Contour for exploring tabular data, Quiver for multimodal charting, Code Workbook for Python and R, and Fusion, which is like a spreadsheet that connects to their ontology system.
But they also integrate with external tools, right?
Yeah, they have out-of-the-box connectors for Power BI and Tableau, REST APIs, ODBC and JDBC drivers, and Python and R SDKs. So you're not completely locked into their analytics tools.
That's important for organizations that have already invested in other visualization platforms.
Absolutely. And it shows how the market is evolving. Even Palantir recognizes that enterprises want to use best-of-breed tools rather than being forced into a single vendor's entire stack.
Speaking of market evolution, what do you think this all means for the future? Are we heading toward more integration between these platforms?
I think so. The Snowflake partnership, the Microsoft integration, even the strategic partnership between Databricks and Palantir that was announced in 2025, it all points toward a more interconnected ecosystem rather than winner-take-all competition.
That makes sense. Organizations have too much invested in existing systems to completely start over.
Right. And the research shows that enterprises are increasingly focused on explainability and auditability as AI becomes embedded in decision-making, especially in regulated industries. That's driving demand for platforms that can work together while maintaining governance.
So, when you step back from all this, what's the key insight for organizations trying to make this choice?
I think it comes down to this. You're not just choosing a technology platform, you're choosing an operating model. Do you want to build your own data operating system with maximum flexibility, or do you want to buy one that's pre-built but more opinionated about how you should work?
And increasingly, you don't have to choose just one. The partnerships and integrations we've discussed show that the future is probably hybrid.
Exactly. Companies like Eaton are proving that you can get the best of both worlds, the flexibility of cloud platforms with the operational intelligence of Palantir's ontology approach.
But you still need to understand the trade-offs. Higher upfront costs and potential vendor lock-in with Palantir versus more engineering complexity and longer time to value with cloud platforms.
Right. And your choice probably depends on your industry, your security requirements, your existing technical capabilities, and honestly, your tolerance for complexity.
Well, here's what I think this really comes down to. We're witnessing the maturation of enterprise data platforms. The early days of one-size-fits-all solutions are giving way to a more nuanced ecosystem where different approaches serve different needs.
And that's actually good news for enterprises. More choice, better integration, and the ability to evolve your approach as your needs change rather than being locked into a single vendor's vision of how data should work.
The billion-dollar question, literally, given that DHS contract, is whether your organization needs an operating system or a toolkit. And increasingly, the answer might be both.
Thanks for joining us on Copilot Podcasts. And remember, in the world of enterprise data platforms, the most important choice isn't which vendor to pick, but which philosophy fits how your organization actually works.